I was about to say something, but then I realized it would record it in parody, and I'm not going to say it. Welcome to the new episode. Ooh, the internet is choppy. We love it. We love to see a choppy internet. Welcome to the new episode of Extra Credits. This is a talkback series about Fantasy High Junior Year. If you're watching the fourth episode of this as the first episode of this, wild. Welcome. I'm glad that you're here. On my wonderful co-host and gentleman interviewer, much finer journalist than me, Jordon Brown.
I did some ethical journalism today. It was very exciting.
Were you talking about game reviews? Because there's no ethical proof.
Yeah, it was not. No.
Sorry, that is an old joke.
Oh,
anyway,
I got it. Yeah.
You did for your actual job, for like the job that pays you money?
No, for my TikTok job.
Yes. Good job. Ethical journalism for TikTok.
Technically pays me money, but
it does. But you give it all away.
Amount.
You give it all away because it's so little. Look, and you have so much.
I posted that graph. It was flat, spike, flat. Like it was.
That was so. I do love that. And it's like, why do I do it this way? The data. Yeah. The data is what. I wish I didn't have to be this person, but I want to get the
give
money.
Away 100% of what I made. It's less than what that one video did. Like you can't. It doesn't work. Anyway.
For those that don't know, and somehow watch this series but don't follow Jordon Brown on TikTok, do follow Jordon Brown on TikTok.
Thank you.
And enjoy the hot takes he does to trick the algorithm into giving him money as a creator so that he can give it away to needy and wonderful causes, like the Doctors Without Borders thing.
We just finished a month-long fundraiser for Doctors Without Borders. A huge chunk of the TTRPG community raised over $25,000. It's super, super cool. And
you can still always donate to
TikTok $750 of that. So
exactly. Make corporations give you money to give to causes that they themselves would not effectively support publicly because they don't want to piss anyone off. Even regardless of the moral obviousness to do so. But nonetheless, we're not here to talk about geopolitics. We're not here to talk about doctors and whether or not they do or don't have borders. We're here to talk about. It's been a wild day at work, so I'm really in a strange headspace for this. We're here to talk about Fantasy High Junior Year, Episode 4, and the title of the episode is something I scrolled away from before I thought to read, and will totally. There's not going to be an awkward cut here at all. The title of this episode is Under Pressure. There we go. Good job. We're fine. We're doing great.
I knew the title of the adventuring party, and I knew the title of last week's episode, but this one was a mystery to me. As you were saying it, I was like, it's not all who wander are lost. That was last week.
But nonetheless.
And it's not the Sea of Effluvium or whatever that wild word was.
Sea of Effluvium. So I also know that word. I am also from an English lit major, baby. That's that's the bread and butter right there. But nonetheless, I copied all the names. That's what was important, is the names.
Which we know without having to look.
We know without having to look up at all. We knew it last episode with the chat helping us. Should we get one of your mods, maybe your unpaid intern, to just like sit in this call as an unrecorded person and just feed us data?
Yeah,
do we need a podcast producer for 100 view per episode?
Exactly, with just a chat feed that only we can see, where as we start talking about them, they just like type in the name for us.
Fucking the dream, right? Anyway, let's talk about this episode, because we're batting really good averages on predictability. You already knew, because of some of your interview talks, that they were going to move toward the stress of the academic career and interplay between academia and what the characters would have to do. And they dove right in 2 hours and 45 minutes of essentially junior year is stressful, y'all. It's so stressful.
Yeah, I was chatting with someone who is not American this week, and so I was explaining, like, yeah, that's when you start applying to colleges. It's when you take the tests that, like, will tell you whether or not you're allowed to go. Like, by the time you're in your final year of high school, certainly the final semester of high school, like, you know what's going to happen. You no longer care about anything that's happening with you in high school.
Yeah, nothing you do in high school short of anything that would be illegal in and outside of high school can really affect you in that way.
Yeah.
Specifically, the way I want to frame this first segment, and I think it's important that we frame this first segment, is that it's weird. This story is a little bit unique in the way that the call to action for the heroes is in the sort of classic fantasy genre is only just being revealed at the tail end of this episode and probably next episode. Like, there's some seeds, there's some foreshadowing with the rat grinders and stuff like that about different challenges, but sort of the, okay, who's the Nightmare King? You know, like, what's the Nightmare King? What's the Calvaxis of it all? What's the mysterious challenge that's ruining things? And everything. And they've alluded to it. There's been, like, hints to it. Obviously, the trailers alluded to it. But now we're 4 episodes in, which is 20% of the way into the season, and we just got it because the fucking other challenges, the other arguable character development call to action, is so wildly more prescient and constant. How do you make D&D fun when it's just about the same things that normal people have to deal with in their lives, Jordan Brown?
Well, I think
how is Brendan doing?
Yeah, first of all, you get the like 6 of the greatest improvisers alive. That's always a good start.
That does help. That does help.
Yeah, I think I don't know that this is the season's call to action, because this feels so Kristen specific. And it certainly might like spill out, but I don't know. It feels like I still feel like I think, well, I mean, we got our first Chungledown Bim reference in this episode, so
nailed it. We already called it Chungledown Bim.
Yeah.
He's coming back. He's definitely coming back now.
But I feel like in the same way that we're seeing the rat grinders as the like mirror of the bad kids, except for obviously of, you know, like power gaming, just out there stomping on rats to get higher levels. It feels like maybe this season is going to be like Chungledown Bim comes. I think we've talked about it, the Sinister Six of, you know, like of all of their villains kind of like coming out of the woodwork, and now we're seeing like Kristen has created this. Well, I was going to say nightmare, but literal nightmare for them in just being such a bad prophet, but a perfect teenager.
So perfect. Allie is playing a deeply traumatized person that's desperately trying to find anything that's as meaningful as they thought their childhood was, while still rebelling internally against ever picking anything for fear of it. There's so many layers to Kristen Appleby's, and Allie's doing that, and also making it funny. Like, having to make it, like, it has to be exaggerated. It has to be a little bit funnier. Yeah. That's who Allie is as a person, as a comedian. And so it's like, it's so good to watch that. I think you might be right. Maybe this isn't the call to action. I was thinking call to action, like this is the big bad.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not. Is there no big bad this
season? It feels early in the season to be getting that a fight.
Yeah,
with
it usually
the big
takes
bad.
about mid-season until we get the reveal. What was his name from Unsleeping City? The real human being that existed in the world.
We didn't Google Unsleeping City names before this.
I keep wanting to say Roger Stone, and that is not it.
It's not it.
But it's a name like that.
Yeah.
But anyone that's watching this probably
a real human being who was a real human villain,
a real human monster.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think also
you're right.
that how do you capture and make it compelling actual play of we're going to class. I think, you know, part of the brilliance of this season is, especially because it's now the third year of Fantasy High, and like we for most people, they've probably watched a ton of their Dimension 20 seasons. We all know the rules pretty well at this point. We're like the players. We've read the book. Like this isn't freshman year coming in jumping on tables. Like we know the rules. And so I think being able to lean into what it means to be a barbarian, what it means to have to buy spell components, while like, so that it's like that very meta knowledge of D&D coupled with how do you afford 5 barrels of diamonds as a child with no money. You get a job.
Infinite strudel. Oodles of strudels.
Yeah. Like
the infinite strudel dimension that may be infinite or not. We don't know. The crank it's not run out yet, and it's been 4 days. Wild. I agree. I also think, but jumping off of what you're saying, it just came to me. One of the things that they have done to really elevate and escalate this isn't a teen coming of age story in so much as they're like, you know what? Being that age is stressful and it's something we can all connect to. They're like, what if instead of that, all of the bad kids have like 3 to 4 things that they are stacking on themselves that make it even more stressful than just doing well in school, maybe getting a part-time job and figuring out who you're going to date, right? Like it's now multi-classing means they gave it real numbers of percentage of class loads, 4 times the amount of schoolwork for Gorgug. And then immediately turning it at the end of the episode back to something that is so true of the young experience. You finally have to decide, do you do the thing you need to do, or do you do the thing you want to do? And they drove it home immediately when Siobhan had to go to work, or Siobhan, when Adine had to go to work, and instead of the party, which we've all experienced, and then having it then like escalate at the mall. And then having them being like, we want this thing. We want this strip party to go off like gangbusters. But our friend's god is freaking the fuck out through that window. Like, the stress of this is amazing. And it's, again, a masterclass of how you look at a normal thing, blend it with sort of like high stakes, high fantasy, like epic adventure storytelling, and make pedestrian things very life or death, which is so true, again, circling back to the teenage experience, where everything feels, because it is the most stressed out you've ever been, it is the most stressful thing in the world. Everything feels life and death, and for the bad kids, it is actually life and death. It's so good. It's so good. We're going to take a break, and we're gonna have a Jordon Brown Patreon advertisement.
Can't wait.
I don't know what it is. Jordan doesn't know what it is.
Not even a little bit.
I'm sure it will make perfect sense and clearly explain what that Patreon is for.
Back against the wall, we gotta fight back. I need a theme song, this the right track. I ain't got no cape or no superpowers, just confidence and self-esteem, the world is ours. I believed in me when nobody didn't. This ain't no freestyle, just some facts that's written. Come on, let's hear it for the boy. He bringing pain at the same time, joy. Look at me, take a picture, it'll last longer. The mirror on the wall say I'm getting stronger. Ayo, the mirror don't lie. Ayo, the mirror don't lie. Look at me, take a picture, it'll last longer. The mirror on the wall say I'm getting stronger. Ayo, the mirror don't lie.
What an excellent advertisement for Jordon Brown's Patreon. The second best value that's related to Dropout content that isn't just also related because it has participants of the Dropout casts in something. What I'm saying is just give Jordan your money. But
give me your $5.
He's the only person that is willing to sponsor this thing, and by sponsor I mean a beer. So we totally didn't have to. It finally just came to Jordan inspired the villain of Unsleeping City,
Robert Moses.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a silence beat, and then I'm gonna lead into it, and then we're gonna say Robert Moses, and then I'm gonna cut that back. There's a little behind the screen YouTube editing magic, and I'm totally not gonna leave this part in right here to show my lack of professionalism. All right, 3, 2, 1. You're right, Jordan. Usually the villain doesn't come in until a little bit later. Like, look at Unsleeping City, season 1, and
when Robert Moses,
exactly,
real human
exactly.
villain
Robert Moses, one of the most infamous villains of New York City development that we're all deeply familiar with, and in no way could possibly forget the name. Okay, that's perfect.
Magic.
I'll edit that back in. It'll be seamless.
Yeah.
No one will know that we figured it out later. This is YouTube editing magic. All right. Section number 2, Jordan. Jordan, let's talk about the teachers, because they matter so much more this year.
Let's
talk about
now.
the teachers. Now, I don't mind being honest about this. I had to list up a name. It's a lot of NPCs. It's a lot of NPCs to keep track of. So who is your most favorite teacher this year? And it can be someone that's been introduced, but so far, who's your favorite teacher that you've seen kind of come into play?
I think it's Skull Cleaver. I know we talked about
the
her.
bard dancing
yes,
teacher.
I know we talked about her in the last episode, but man, what a fun energy she brings. Just like a delight.
100%.
Yeah, God, I didn't pull up a list of the teachers. What's the barbarian teacher's name? I want to say Foster, and I don't think that's it.
Yeah, it's Foster.
It's Foster?
Or no, sorry, it's not Foster. It's Porter.
Porter, that's it.
Porter Cliffbreaker,
yes.
as I glanced around. I'm not even going to hide it. I'm clearly looking off screen at a list.
Yeah.
Porter Cliffbreaker. So Porter.
Part of me wanted to be like, my favorite is Porter, just because he's so awful in every way. Just like,
he's so bad, but he's also kind of great, though, right? Like, if they weren't teenagers, he would be one of my favorite characters, because he'd be just flipping them shit nonstop.
Yeah.
But because that's not his job, he's a bad man.
Yeah. Oh man, telling Gorgug, I'll let you do this if Fig comes and takes classes after is it Henry? Is that the artificer teacher's name?
Henry? Yeah, Opclap, yeah.
So after Henry was like, hey, Porter can't stop you from doing this. Porter still was like, I'll let you if you do this. It's like, we know you don't have a say in it, and you're still
the way
bad.
he's doing it now, you literally have nothing to do with him taking those classes now. Porter, just an absolute son of a bitch. But like, I agree with you. Bard dance teacher, fantastic. My favorite from probably interaction from this episode is Zara Sewell, the warlock teacher.
Yeah, a vampire with a celestial paramour that is also the
relationship.
Patron. So good.
So perfect.
It's one of those things where like Brennan said it, and I was like, I don't think anyone from my campaign watches this. I can steal this because it is absolutely perfect. This is going into all of my campaigns forever. A vampire with a celestial patron.
It's so good. It's just such a cool idea. So that being said, we've done some NPC swapping, and they've said in the talkbacks that this has been, that was deliberate, right? New characters, new people that have kind of always been around, but we haven't seen yet, and everything, because that's how, again, it's a very real teenage experience, is that because your classes shift and your world shifts, you just meet a bunch of people constantly, and you're thrown into new social situations. Do you feel like, other than being sort of the quest givers, do you feel like any of these teachers are gonna move further into the plot than they already have, because they're already very tied into each person's own challenges. Do you feel like, because I don't feel like the campaign's going to go fully just like, nope, it's always just been education. They've got their Sinister Six, they've got other things. Do you feel like anyone's, because they sort of dragged Galir into being one of those things, and Gorthalax kind of has that. A lot of the sophomore year was them dragging their parent from NPCs and just like forcing them into the plot repeatedly. Do you think Brennan's going to let them do that again, or do you think they're going to have more of a backseat this time?
I think, oh man, I feel like most of them will have a backseat, but in like loose Duke fashion, Porter is in fact going to end up being a villain just to vindicate Emily's like conspiracy, her 3-year conspiracy. I feel like Brennan is finally going to either that, or Porter will like be a like mind controlled red herring kind of thing. Like it's like there will be a conclusion to Fig believing Porter is the villain.
One way or the other, yes. I believe that you are correct.
But I mean, I feel like there's so many other ones. Like Zara feels like one that could be like very important, but at the same time may just fade into the background. And that, of course, is also the danger of an actual play. I don't know if that's the right word, but like you don't know which NPC you introduce the players are going to latch onto. So Brennan has just like thrown like all these teachers at them and been like, all right, you figure out who you want to come on your adventure.
Yeah. And I think it's a very different way of story. It's one of the things that makes an actual play a lot more like a video game. Is like, all right, these are the NPCs. Who do you care about? Who do you care? Who do you bring with you out onto your, when you're trolling around on the map doing the things, right?
When you're in the forest grinding those rats.
Grinding those rats. We need to talk about the absolute trigger that obviously bled all the way through Riz and into all of Murph's body the moment that was revealed.
Yeah, the split screen of Emily and Murph as they like figured out that like grinders literally meant they were grinding like XP to level up. Like that split screen of the two of them, and then Murph just like, clearly like Riz gone, Murph the human being so angry at the concept. It's just absolutely...
It's not the point of doing this!
Yes. And it's so funny and so perfect that Kimberly Copperkettle, never a name I don't have to look up anymore, but like that she thinks the bad kids aren't playing by the rules because they're out saving the world, but grinding rats in a forest for hours every single day of your life, fully playing by the rules. Like, I love that, like, in her mind, she's the good guy.
It's a really good oppositional ethical conflict, because there's a lot of arguments to be made that it's like the bad kids have kind of unfairly been posted up, and if you weren't with them, you don't know how much danger that they were in and everything. So it feels like they're just golden children that the principal of the headmaster of the school just likes, and then one of them dates the headmaster's daughter, offspring, and everything, and they seem like they've been so favored because from the outside, that's what's happened. These kids barely show up to class. Somehow they've made it to junior year. And everything. But yeah, I think that it makes a lot of sense, because you could go after them for that, but instead, the anger or the fury is arguably probably underneath the hood, because the rat grinders thought that they figured out a way to game the system. And nobody gives a shit about what they're doing. And their payoff takes longer. There was the first two sessions, which are sort of the setup, the combat fun setup, the in media res, and the kind of bummer of the exhaustion fallout from it and realization. And then there was two solid episodes of like hard setup. And one of them was 2 hours, one of them was 2 hours and 45 minutes. So we've got almost 5 hours before we get to like a conflict you can punch. How do you feel about that, Jordan? How do you feel about that as a person that also runs games and everything?
Yeah, I mean, I love it because like 5e is such a combat system. It's a combat simulator through and through. So like having them have to do anything that's not combat is so fun for me to watch, because I'm like, yeah, they don't have, they've got skills and things, but like they're not optimized to do this stuff. Like they're not optimized to go to high school. They're optimized to go to a mall food court and have a fight with a god. Like that's what they're ready to do. So I love to see it, and I love a good, like, I'm playing in a campaign that, you know, like we haven't had a combat in a couple of sessions. You know, I love a good role-playing session where I get to like dive deep with those characters. And I also love the combats. I appreciate that we have moved past, you know, the freshman year of story, fight pattern. Like I love that it could be anytime, at any moment in an episode they could fly in a map, or it could be 2 full episodes of, you know, exposition, and then we're going to start in a battle at the beginning of the next one.
Yeah, I think that it really does show off. It encourages players and GMs to be like, you know, the combat's fun, and you can have a lot of fun with your combats. And if you want to get really good at combat, you can watch things like Dimension 20. You can listen to Murph do combats in NADPOD, because they're some of the best combat setups.
I don't think there's anyone better than him.
Yeah. We will watch some fan art now. The fan art list is ever expanding, as I said in the last episode. If you are interested in having your fan art featured on this, I can offer you nothing but exposure, which per my channel's name will kill you. But it's a great pitch. But feel free to reach out to me at Dying Exposure across any of the social media platforms that you find me posting about this show. Feel free to DM me, get in the comments on the YouTube. And don't reach out to Jordan, he's busy.
Well, I was to say, but also, we can only offer you exposure because we don't make money from this.
Yeah. If I made money, I should make that clear. There's no money being made off of this. This is for the love of the game, and because my channel is not mod. Watch the fan art, and then we'll be back for some wild speculation.
Yeah.
Back, prayer hands. Welcome back. We're doing wild speculation. We definitely didn't just retake that. Jordan, combat, next episode. We know it's happening. We've seen the up next. We've seen the semi-pearlescent, transparent, wild speculation. What do you think is... there's some things that the preview sort of implies, but what do you think is happening to our beloved goddess of night and mystery?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, Siobhan being classic Siobhan, like, clocks what Brennan is up to. I think most of the... I think we've talked about, like, Siobhan is the one who understands Brennan's worlds the best of anyone at that table, of being like, hey, Nightmare King is happening right now. And that definitely feels like it, but it also feels so different of, like, red shards of rage are flying out of Cassandra and like making wizards turn into hulking monsters.
That's a little different than we last saw the Nightmare King's kind of game, and it makes me wonder if they're gonna lean into the likelihood of, like, the Nightmare King, or whatever that is, if it is that, the expression you saw was the emotional disposition of whoever becomes the Nightmare, or, like, is the Nightmare King, right? And so it's not so much that you solved it, you just solved that emotional problem. This is a different betrayal, disappointment, hurt, and it's very immediate, so it comes out much more angry and hot. How hard do you think this battle's going to be?
Oh, I think
do you think this is
so difficult? I think Brennan is Night Yorb style, not pulling any punches, very explicitly throwing them as hard as he can. I mean, I think he wants to batter and bruise the bad kids as much as possible for presumably a even longer arc of how do we keep doing this and school and life of teenagedom, but to the heightened degree of, hey, you got to go save the world again right now.
Yeah, right. Again, this was a very immediate, like, this might not be saving the world, but it's definitely saving the mall and a bunch of random wizards that all seem pretty harmless, as we've been introduced to them as NPCs, as being just good, doddering old wizards. Combat in D&D usually only takes a few minutes.
Yeah.
Now, or a minute, if that, right? Because every round is, 6 seconds, right? So even 10 rounds is 1 minute. Now, admittedly, it's other planar travel, so he can always just be like, oh, and you get back, and it happens to be an hour later, right? And everything. But I think that he's going to really try to put them, basically, instead of it being like, Fabian was worried, like, no, the party's going to fall apart. It's, when you get back from this, you're not going to want it.
Yeah.
You're not going to want it.
Yeah, you're going to be...
And do you do it anyway?
You're going to have been knocked unconscious 3 times. You're you're rocking up with 2 HP and 2 levels of exhaustion. You're not there. You're not ready for the ultimate shrimp dive.
So wild. The scene with them in the tent with Lou as Fabian making all the calls to help, or getting all the calls to coordinate and everything. Just an immense... It's why teenagers don't have unlimited money usually, because they could not possibly make good choices with them, as we see from the wealth class.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a whole ep battle. I don't think this is going to wrap up in an hour. I think it's going to be a big, thick, complicated combat. I'm going to wildly speculate that I don't even think this is wildly speculated. I'm gonna medium speculate, I guess. I think this creates a full reversal position where Kristen has to chase down her god. I think they're gonna save her, or at least put it back in the box for now. But I think this is going to be like, all right, now a god doesn't want you. But Chungledown Bim win. Baron of the Baronies win.
Yeah, we need it. We need the new Chungledown Bim art. We need Baron art. It's got to happen.
Squeam's return. There's a pin now.
Yeah.
I know that there was already enough Squeam heat. I predict return of Squeam sometime this season.
He's walking through the red wastes. You know he's going to show up in like the final battle. And here's my bold prediction. Squeam shows up, final battle, in a moment of desperation and gets absolutely obliterated upon walking into the battle. Just like they're like, Squeam! And then he's disintegrated.
100% correct. I'd be willing to put all of your paycheck on that. All of the money you earn, however frequently you get paid, 1 paycheck unit on that. I'm betting it so that if I win, I get the money. But if I lose, you have to pay it.
Yeah.
That's how you sponsor this actual play. Is you let me gamble with your paychecks. I'm sure your spouse and child are fine with that arrangement.
We didn't need to pay the mortgage whatever month that happens in anyway. The bank will be cool. Right. I'll tell them.
The banks are notoriously chill. After they change the color of their branding, they are notoriously chill.
Good. So good.
Do you need Dragon Madness protection? I already kind of had that. Okay. So much. This episode was so thick with just like live-in life lore that really helped flesh out. This is where Elmville is at. This is where all the consequences and previous actions and everything are at. I think that they can run away with the challenges a bit more now because they've really taken their time to set a table.
Yeah.
And be like, all right, whatever the plot may be, you know where they're starting from. The worst and most stressful time. That anyone who was older than 22 would just curl up in a ball and weep because they couldn't possibly have the energy for it. But nonetheless, it's been wonderful talking to you about this episode, as it is every week. Episode 4, extra credit. Do the whole like and subscribe thing. If you're still watching it and you haven't liked and subscribed at this point, you're a wild one.
We gotta start saying that up top. That's where we get them.
I kind of hate it up top because I haven't earned anything. Hey, there's 2 white guys on your YouTube. Like and subscribe to us because we're so unique compared to all the rest. But do like and subscribe. Follow all of the socials at Dying of Explorer. But more importantly, if you have to do one thing that I ask you to do, go to patreon.com/thejordanbound and go the hours of content, the wonderful interviews with many Dimension 20 and Dropout staff in general, only more excellent interviews coming down the pipeline.
Coming your way.
Yeah, and it's going to be very exciting. And then you'll be able to stay current and updated on all of the Jordan Brown stuff for the next charity event that'll probably be in May.
Probably in May.
But nonetheless, it's been wonderful. You all have a good night, and see you in Basrars.
See you in Basrars.